He prayed first for his 6 kids and his 17 grandkids. And at that time, there were only 17 great-grandkids, but as you heard, there's been another one since then. And on the top of the list, after praying for the kids and grandkids and great-grandkids, at the top of that list were especially the ones that he was worried that he might not see again after he died. He also prayed for personal and spiritual and practical needs for each of you, and as well as the needs and challenges that came up that he was aware of. His concern didn't stop with his children, though. The list included old friends and people that he had just met, neighbors across the hall and across the world. And I had never really realized that my dad was a prayer warrior. My dad's heart was to serve. Not to elevate himself, but to lift up those he served, to help them discover or grow in a relationship with our Creator, and to glorify his Lord. Shortly after moving to Flagstone, he was named the center's pastor in residence. I think the director had envisioned that he was going to pastor for the residents. That didn't limit his scope to that small. And he spent a lot of time with the residents, encouraging them, visiting them. Many of the residents shared stories with me when I would visit about how Dad had touched their lives. And one particular resident, each time I visited, would tell me, "Oh, your dad's a missionary to the senior center here, and we really are grateful to have him here because we really need him." He saw the staff just as much as a part of his mission field, however, and particularly the ones that spent their breaks at the smoking area just outside and underneath his window. I could hear their conversations pretty well when I visited, but I don't know that Dad could make out a whole lot of what was said out there, but he was concerned about them. And he was always looking for opportunities to ask them about their spiritual life and to share Jesus with them if they gave him an opening and were interested. My dad was a missionary and an evangelist and a servant. So I've often focused, especially as a kid, more on what Dad didn't give me. Like, he didn't teach me how to work on cars like he did my older brothers. And often he was not very responsive or engaged. And at some point I started catching myself and reminding myself that he gave us far more than he had received from his dad. Since his dad had left the family when he was young and wasn't always very loving when he was there. And I also had the benefit of having 8 older siblings to break that in for me. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. 5. Oh, 5. Sorry, did I say 6? No, 8. Oh, wow. It must have been the tears in my eyes that I couldn't read. So, he had 8 siblings, though. That's where that came from. So, much of my life, I was unsure that he loved me and cared about me unconditionally. And I'm grateful that by the time he left us, I knew that without a doubt, he cared for me deeply, even when he didn't understand me or agree with me. And in case siblings are wondering, he felt the same way about you. On my birthday this spring, his loss really hit me, and I felt so alone that the one man that loved me and cared about me unconditionally was gone. I miss him, because Wayne Eames was also my father.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm going to invite David Bruss up, and this is a time where we can share memories, share thoughts, share feelings about Wayne. So everybody feel free if we have to go all the way until midnight, whatever it takes, because there's so much love that I know people had. So yeah, it is the midnight sun. So come on up, David.
Thanks. While all of you are thinking about your memories of Wayne and things that you remember from his life, I've got a note here from our former pastor, Pastor Len Richardson, and he left a little statement he wanted to give us about his feelings towards Wayne too. Wayne Eames was a tremendous inspiration to me as a new pastor. While we did not always see completely eye to eye, he was a great support and held a high regard for the pulpit and those who labor in the pastoral role. When he moved down to Washington State, I missed his occasional word of encouragement or challenge. I am deeply honored to have known him. I rejoice that he is now with his lovely bride and they will forever worship their King. Their love for each other serves as a model for all those in the journey of marriage. He touched innumerable lives, and I'm glad that my life was one of them. So while you're thinking about what you might want to share, I'll go ahead and share a few thoughts that I have. And like Pastor Scott said, this is the portion of memorial services where this can go on and on, but that's fine. So my relationship with Wayne started when they came here as pastors in the early to mid 70s, I think 72 to 76. And that, at this point in Kenny Lake, was a very tumultuous time because that was during pipeline construction when the population here exploded. And it was a very troubling time for me as well, because Wayne's timing of coming here was that he had a deal with me when I was probably at the worst point in my life, because my family also came to a crashing end. And at that time, I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I had a heart that was full of hatred and anger, especially towards my father. And because I was right in the middle of the path of his kids, he knew what had happened to my family, and he kind of treated me as a father. And at the time, that was the last thing I wanted, was another father to interfere in my life. And to this day, I don't remember if it was something I said or something I did. I guess it doesn't really matter. But towards the end of his ministry here, he very sternly rebuked me about something. It was probably something I did, but then again, it could have been something I said. But he very sternly rebuked me, and I didn't sass him back or anything else. But when he was done, I stormed out of here. I got in my truck, I put it in first gear, and I floored it out of here, spraying gravel out of the driveway and burning rubber down the highway, thinking to myself, I am never coming back to this church until the Eames leave. I was so mad. And I don't even remember what it was about. But after some time, probably a couple months, I knew that I was wrong. And I knew that my conscience was guilty. And I knew that I had to make things right with him. And even though it was the last thing I wanted to do, I knew I had to come back here and apologize to him. And I did. And one of the most important things I've learned in my life is that when a repentant sinner confesses and the offended forgives, a relationship doesn't return to how it was. It's better. It's stronger. It's higher. It's closer. And that's what happened with Wayne and myself. The only problem was this was towards the end of their term here, and they were getting ready to leave on furlough, and then they never came back. But my relationship when they left was so much better than what it started out to be. In 1995, when Wayne and Doris did come back, I got a call from him one evening, and I'm sure he worded this in the form of a request or a question, but I heard it as, Doris and I are putting together a missionary team to go to Japan, and you're going. And I was kind of like, well, you know, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it won't kill me to get out of my comfort zone once in my life. But as he organized our group, and I see Paul and Nancy Kelly here, and I know Ginny came, Stephen, Julie Halpin went. There were a few others from Anchorage and Glen Allen. But one of the things he did is he insisted that we each keep a private diary or journal. And his instructions were very firm that every single day, before we go to sleep, we were to write in our journal the thoughts and feelings we had about the things we saw, the things we heard, the things we said, the things we did. He wanted us to make sure that we write down our feelings and our thoughts on everything we experienced every day. Don't wait till the next day, because the next day is going to have its own issues. Write every single night before you go to sleep. Write in your journal the thoughts and feelings of everything you encountered that day. And I remember questioning him, so what's the deal with the journal thing? And he wouldn't say. And he basically told me, look, if you don't want to do it, you're not going. I'm like, well, okay. I mean, I've kind of been a record keeper all of my life anyway, so I didn't have an issue with that, but I couldn't figure out why that was such an important thing to go build a church in Japan. Well, I had never been to a foreign country before, except maybe Canada, but that's not really foreign for the most part. But I was surprised at my initial reaction when we went and looked at the life of the Japanese people, because Japan is primarily Buddhist. Over 90% of the Japanese people are Buddhist, and the other few percent is Shintoism. So there's Shintoism and Buddhism, but mostly it's Buddhism. And a couple days into our activities over there, we went to this small town or city, and there was like a strip mall of little shops and stuff where we bought things and saw the activities of the life of the Japanese people. And for the first time in my life, I saw people getting down on their knees and worshiping and praying to stone idols and brass statues of Buddha. And I was just dumbstruck with how that affected me, because I couldn't believe that people could be that stupid. I actually felt an anger coming up in me watching that. Like I wanted to take a sledgehammer and just go through town and just smash every single one of these and tell these people, look, what are you doing worshiping and praying to rocks? Did I just kill your God because I knocked his head off with a sledgehammer? What kind of idiots are you? These are the thoughts and feelings I had that I was writing down in my journal. Nobody else knew I was feeling this way. But that's what I had never seen. We've all heard of people worshiping idols and stuff in the Old Testament and things. I never witnessed that with my eyes. And I couldn't believe the feeling I had about that. My feeling towards those people is they're just stupid idiots. How can you pray to rocks? Towards the end of the mission trip there, Wayne and Doris took us to a small church, and I don't know if it was one of Sen's churches or if it was somebody else who was affiliated with Sen, but there was a couple there in a cabin maybe no bigger than this stage. That was as big as the place was. And they had been there for 26 years. And this couple had, most of the time, nobody came on a Sunday morning. The pastor would share his notes with his wife, and they'd sing a few hymns, and that was their church service, and nobody came. But they had two elderly Japanese women who I think were the only ones that ever came. And after 26 years, that pastor did not know if either of those women had ever understood a single word he had ever said in 26 years. And I remember talking with Wayne on the way back from that. I said, I can't believe somebody would do that. Why would you go to a place and stay there for over a quarter of a century, and you spend your whole life there and you don't even know if they've understood one word you've ever said? Wouldn't you be much better off building the kingdom of God by going someplace where they can understand you? Surely there's got to be, missionaries that can read, write, and speak Japanese so that at least they can understand what you're saying. And then I asked him, I specifically asked Wayne, would you do that? Would you bring your family here for 26 years and minister and not even be sure if they've understood one word that's come out of your mouth? And I couldn't believe what he said. He said, if God called me in a heartbeat. I can't understand that. Why in the world? Surely you would be better off someplace where people can understand you. And he told me, read Romans 10. So that night, before I went to sleep, I remember, the only reason I know these things is I'm reviewing them in my journal. I read Romans 10. And when I got to the middle of the chapter, I realized this is the part he wanted me to read. How can they call upon him in whom they have not believed? How can they believe in him in whom they have not heard? These are people that pray to rocks. How can they do anything else if they don't know that there is anything else? How can they hear if no one preaches? How is anybody ever going to tell these rock prayers that there's a God who actually made the rocks unless somebody tells them? And how can anybody tell them unless they're sent? And then one of the most dramatic things that I ever read in Scripture that finally started making sense. For it is written, how beautiful on the mountain are the feet of those who bring good news. And I wrote in my journal that night, how beautiful on the mountain are the feet of Wayne and Doris for bringing the good news to people that pray to rocks. Then I think it was the last night of our time there in Japan. Wayne gathered us all together. And he had warned us ahead of time to review your journals and be ready to give an account of what you see when you review your journal. We were there for, I think, 3 to 4 weeks. I can't remember now. It was quite a while. But he said, review your journals and give a report of your thoughts and feelings from the beginning of this trip to the end of this trip. Well, the day before that, we were somewhere else, and I don't remember where, some kind of public venue. And I remember seeing this super old man. He had to be at least in his 90s. He could barely shuffle along with a walker, and he had like a blanket or a shawl over his whole body. And we were coming up behind him, and I turned around to look at him as I passed him. And his whole face was burned off. And I thought to myself, I don't know why this thought came to me, but I thought to myself, I wonder if when the only time in human history that we dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan, if this man survived that but had his face burned off. Now, maybe that's not it, but that's just, again, the thoughts that I had going through my mind at the time. And I thought to myself, this man might be the oldest rock prayer in Japan. Why did God allow him to survive the atomic attack, to survive being burned by a nuclear bomb? Why is he still here? And why did I just pass him by here? And then I thought about the passage in Romans 10. How beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. And I thought to myself, I know what that good news is. I should tell him. And I thought, well, he's like everybody else. He won't be able to understand English. And I thought, then I thought about Esther, that maybe I'm here. Maybe the reason I came, that Wayne brought me on this trip to Japan was to tell this 90-some-year-old burned guy that there's somebody who created the rocks, that you don't have to pray to the rocks. But I didn't say anything. We just kept on going. And I remember writing in my journal that night, it haunted me that I was too scared or too ashamed to tell this person about the one who created the rocks. And then the last night we were there, when we were sharing out of our journals, and Wayne would never tell me why we wrote these journals. He wanted us to see and understand for ourselves. He wanted us to examine our own thoughts and feelings so that we could see where our heart was towards a people that prayed to rocks. And I was astounded at this because I read my own words. These people are stupid idiots. To the end of the trip, when I'm haunted that I didn't tell this person who the true God is. And Wayne is sitting in the corner, grinning like a possum in a persimmons tree, because later he told me it worked. He said, that's why I didn't tell you. I wanted, basically, I've tried to tell you things in the past, look how that turned out. I wanted you to see with your own handwriting, your own thoughts, to see if you have the heart of compassion towards a people that pray to rocks. Because I didn't. But this mission trip that we took to Japan changed how I look at people that I just think are stupid idiots because they pray to rocks. I was haunted by not telling them what the good news is. That's one of the great lessons I've learned from Wayne. Wayne was such a rare person because he not only had a heart as a missionary, but then he had a heart as a pastor. And those aren't exactly the same thing. Usually when God calls a person as a missionary, he doesn't call them as a pastor. They might do some of the same things at times, but they're distinctive callings. Wayne had both of them. Towards the end of his life here now, Wayne and Doris always came to the Tuesday night Bible study we had here. And nobody, or maybe I should say everybody put together, didn't encourage me nearly as much as Wayne did. He would call me sometimes 3 or 4 times a week and tell me of something he just read, something that came in the mail, something he heard on the radio that was directly related to what we were studying on Tuesday nights. He gave me so many of his books out of his library, just pamphlets and just other stuff that he'd come across. If it had anything to do with what we were studying, it was either in Romans or Matthew, he would give them to me. And I remember him once saying, I don't know why I'm getting all this stuff that's related to Tuesday night, except to give it to you. And he will never know until I can talk to him again how much that encouraged me. Because to have a pastor who already has examined whether my heart was fit and had compassion to a people that don't know about God, as in Ephesians 4:12 says, that the purpose of the church primarily is to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. And Wayne knew that. And Wayne was such a great encourager to me, especially towards the end. Because he kind of could sense, I guess, that my calling wasn't to go smash idols in Japan. But it was, at least for right now, to do a Bible study right here. And there was one night, he came up to me, he put his arm around me, and he said, we were studying one of the parables in Matthew 13. He said, I've read this for over half a century. I've never seen what we talked about before. And I thought, look how this is flipped. All this time, he's been teaching me and training me, and now I've actually found something that he didn't know of. That's how God works. That's why we need each other. That's why somebody like Wayne, with a missionary heart, and a pastor's heart affects everyone who he comes in contact with. So I'll just shut my mouth now, and if anybody else wants to come up and share something, here it is.
Eames. Compose myself. I want to first thank you for being here. Mom and Dad love this place. They love the people. They love all of you so much. I want to thank you for coming. Since Dad passed away, Mark and I have been involved in an archaeological dig in our loft, where all of their remaining personal possessions were stored. And after Mom passed away, we never cleared out her things. Dad just didn't want to. So we found out that we can learn a lot about people by what they keep and what they leave. So I wanted to give you a little of what we learned about Dad and Mom. First of all, there was a lot of baking pans. There was boxes and boxes of baking pans and baking accessories because they loved to host and Mom loved to bake. There's nothing better for her than having a house full of people to cook for. And then there was Tupperware. I think I counted 4 boxes of Tupperware. There was never an amount of leftovers that was too big or too small to be saved, because they were frugal. There was lots of paper. I spent hours shredding paper, but included in that paper were photos, letters, and cards that for people who moved as often as they did, it's amazing. They kept all your cards. They kept all your letters, all your photos. And journals, I mentioned journals. There were journals from when 2006 that we did not shred those. There were, Bibles. I think Dad had at least 10 Bibles. Everybody in the family got one. We gave them away to churches. Whoever wanted one got one. And then we found a box of Bibles that said Mom's old Bibles. So then there was another 10 Bibles. And there were hundreds of books, Dave mentioned. Hundreds and hundreds of books. They believed in lifelong learning and lifelong relationships, as shown by all the cards and letters. We found their annual prayer letters back to 1951. The earlier ones were mimeographed, because anybody old enough to remember mimeographs? The recent ones were emailed. They were pretty amazing. And then we hit the jackpot. During the war, Dad wrote love letters to Mom. We knew they existed, but they would never let us read them. Mark found them, and I read them. They were amazing. I wish that we had been able to read him when he was alive. There were so many things I could have asked about. But they were written to Mom when he was on the ship. And you'd think that he was keeping watch when he was on the bridge. He was writing letters. And these letters were an amazing insight into the places he visited, his loves, his interests. It looked like